What's up, Z.E.R.T Nation? Mr. X here. Have a lot of you guys that are requesting online, or I get individual messages on weapons maintenance and weapons cleaning. So today I'm going to cover how I clean my AR-15. Got a lot of stuff here, and hopefully I hit it all. Video is probably going to take about 10 minutes, maybe a little longer, a little shorter. Anytime you clean one of your firearms, the very first thing that you want to do is a safety check. Make sure that that firearm is unloaded. We usually, in the military here at Z.E.R.T, we always talk about a 3-point safety check. A lot easier to do that if you lock the bolt to the rear. Check that chamber, check that firing pin, the magazine well. This is unloaded. So from this point, I'm going to take the thing apart. And I usually have a, chronological order that I take this, that I clean it. It doesn't matter what it is. Just get into a repetition, just so you don't miss anything. Whether it's, clean your lower than your upper than your bolt, one or the other. I try to do one part, clean the entire thing, including the buffer spring. I'll hit one, set it to the side, and then I'll clean the upper, which includes my bolt carrier group, charging handle, barrel upper, depending on how smeared up my optic is. If I do have optics, then I go ahead and check that out and clean it. This one's actually looking pretty good. But like I said, I go ahead and pretty much tear down the entire firearm. And my maintenance schedule, it all depends. Those of you that own a Glock, you know that I've put 4,000 or 5,000 rounds in my Glock before I cleaned it before. Now, in saying that, this is my Glock 34 that I train with. I'm trying to see what standard that I can hold. If it's my concealed carry firearm, am I going to put 5,000 rounds through it before I clean it? Absolutely not. I'm more prone to clean more often just because I depend on that thing. It's not a training tool as much as it is a self-defense tool. So I usually don't break it down any further than this right here. Did I miss anything? XP001. It's basically all the common parts. I won't clean or I won't tear down my BCG till I actually get to it. I don't want to lose anything. Guys, it's important for you, guys and girls, get to know your firearm. This is an extension of you. And I've got a lot of equipment here, and all this stuff doesn't go to the range with me. Most of this stuff does. Some of this stuff does. Anytime I go to the range and I know I'm going to go do a course that is a couple-day course, as long as it's in this local area, I don't travel with this. This is something that usually stays home. I have a smaller kit that goes to the range, and we have a couple products here. Now, in saying this, I don't use everything that's on this table. I use most of it, but like the Dewey rods, which we have a great kit from Dewey. I personally don't use one of these because XP001 makes me purchase this stuff, and I do the raffles and I haven't won one yet, but as soon as I do, hey, I do have kits like this, but most of my stuff that I take to the range, it's in my shooting bag. I take a rag, I take some Lucas Extreme Duty that I'm going to talk about, a couple other items just for small maintenance. A lot of this stuff, hey, I'm always cleaning magazines on the range because you're always dropping them into the dirt and the mud. You have to have something that you can use to clean those mags, and I'll talk about that stuff later. The cool thing about this kit right here is you got everything in this packet right here. I've got enough stuff that I've acquired through the years in the military that I honestly pretty much already have this stuff, so there's really no reason to purchase this product. One of the things that I absolutely love and I've been using for the last 20 years is a bore snake. I love this thing. I've got one for every single caliber, and this thing pretty much does the same job as the majority of the stuff in this packet. You got patches and a rod and different items. Bore snake takes care of a lot of that. It costs about anywhere between $15 and $20, and that's probably one of the best pieces of gear that you could buy just to clean the inside of your barrel. Now, there's some few things that can't do, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But Dewey rods makes a great little toolkit that you can keep in your cargo pocket. Throw this thing in the vehicle, you never know when you got to do a little bit of maintenance, and this thing works perfect. Getting down to the nitty gritty with my firearm, I'm going to go ahead and start with the lower. One of the things I always notice with people on the range, and it doesn't matter which type of lubricant that they use, is they tend to completely saturate their firearm with whatever lubricant it is. And it kind of makes me laugh because there's a lot of parts on your firearm that you don't need to lubricate. You know, that upper and that lower receiver, 99% of the time, it's made of aluminum and the sucker's not going to rust. And I'll see a gun during a class that, I mean, they've got a good coating of COP or whatever lubricant that they use all over this thing. Guys, it's going to make your gun slicker, and I guarantee you, as soon as you fire that first round down range, what's probably going to happen is you're going to get a lot of spray back. You're going to get a lot of spray just going everywhere. It's going to get on your glasses. It's going to get on the glasses of the dude beside you. It's going to get on my glasses. And I'm not saying it's going to piss me off, but it's one of those things where you just, there's friction points in that weapon system, in that firearm, and most likely those are the friction points. Those are the places that you have to hit. Now, there's a difference between lubricating a product so it runs forever or runs for a period of time, and lubricating that firearm for like storage. And you're trying to reduce the amount of corrosion, you know, especially if you're around salt water. If you guys live next to the beach, you know, you got saltwater exposure, you know, and all that stuff. Especially when you guys see that stuff, you know, on your vehicles, the underside of your vehicles. Guess what? It's the same thing with your firearms. I hate to say this, but I had a rifle a couple years ago, back when I got out of the Marine Corps, and when I moved back home to Pennsylvania, I stored this rifle in the basement of the house that I was living in, and I wasn't paying attention. I didn't lubricate this sucker well enough, and checked on the rifle after a couple months of just sitting there in a gun case, and there was pitting in the barrel. Well, what happened? Hey, learning experience there. I didn't lubricate that barrel well enough. It doesn't, dude, I could have used motor oil. It didn't matter what I lubricated it with, just as long as you lubricate it if it's sitting for an extended period of time. So there's a difference between lubricating a gun for storage and lubricating a gun to use it. Now, that doesn't mean if I'm storing that AR-15, I'm going to take a nice thin layer of lubricant and do the upper and the lower and everything. Like I said, this is aluminum. It's not going to rust. There's no reason to completely coat and or saturate this firearm with lubrication. As you can see, my rifle's clean. If I got out my 1911 right now or my Glock, it probably wouldn't be as clean, but I cleaned this sucker the last time I went to the range. One of the nicest things on AR platforms, I'm not going to do it because I don't have the screws or the wrenches here, is one of the hardest things to clean on your lower is your trigger assembly. And saying that, you know, I've seen guys get Q-tips down there. People, it's nice to have a AG'd firearm, but is it necessary? No. I've seen AR-15s coming back from overseas that have so much carbon and gunk in that trigger assembly that you look at that sucker and it's like, how is that thing going to even shoot? You know what? It's going to shoot. You know, now do I recommend to never clean that out? You know, 99% of the time, if you take an air hose or something, an air compressor, and you spray it in there, you're going to get most of that gunk out. I see people get in there and, you know, they're getting Q-tips in there and trying to IG it. You don't need to do that with the trigger assembly. Now, in saying that, these are my recommendations and things that I have learned over the years. Air hose, if you don't have an air hose in your garage or anything, compressed air. You know, I usually run with a couple bottles of compressed air. I don't have any on me now because the sucker's clean. I'll use some compressed air, spray that sucker out, and, you know, you clean it out, and it's usually good to go. And saying that, one of the things I always see, you know, and it's a difference between dry firing. Anytime you dry fire a firearm, we recommend that you use snap caps, some type of rounds in there, that when you put it in, you don't have that metal on metal. I don't ever recommend dry firing your firearm when the lower is not attached to the upper, because what's going to happen is your firing pin and your hammer is going to strike the front of your lower receiver. You don't want that to happen. So anytime you pull that trigger, whenever your lower receiver is not attached to your upper, just make sure that you hold your thumb right here. Once you hold your thumb, You can do a functions check. Yeah, it's good to go, but you're not going to slam. Once you slam that hammer onto that upper receiver, that's going to cause these parts to break down, and that's just something that you don't want to do. The cool thing about takedown triggers is it's really easy to clean this thing, because all I got to do is take these two pins out, these slides out. If I want to pull it out to really get in there to do a detail cleaning, I can. I don't see the necessity to do that, but if you want to, it's a lot easier to do that with a trigger assembly that the whole trigger assembly takes out, just because it's one whole piece and part in there. Take out, really get into some fine-tuned cleaning. After that, put it back in, screw it back together, do a function check, should be good to go. The main thing that I want to hit whenever I'm cleaning my lower receiver is that magazine well. All right, you're going to see a lot of caked up dirt, sand in there, and the fact of the matter is that's going to, when you get a lot of stuff in here, dirt, grime, grit, it's really easy for that firearm to not properly seat magazines, unseat magazines. A lot of you guys see that when you put a magazine in there and you push that magazine release, it's not going to release as smooth. It's going to get stuck. It's usually because that magazine well is dirty. You know, really easy to just take a cloth, get in there, wipe it down, take an AP brush or a toothbrush, get in there, put a little bit of lubrication on it, get in there and scrub it. And just take a gander, and yeah, it's clean and good to go. You got a little spring in here with your magazine release. For those of you that have never taken it apart, pretty easy to do. This is something that I usually do once every couple months. All you got to do is push in on that magazine release, get it to a point. If you can't push it with your finger, use a knife or a tool, or I'll usually take a rod or something. You can push in on that. Once you push in on it, it's really easy to just turn this to a point where after a while, it's under spring tension. After a while, it's going to just unspring. It's going to disconnect, take it apart, clean it, maybe put a little bit of lubrication on that spring, put it right back in, tighten it up to a point where you're going to want to make sure that it's flush on one side. But whenever I push that, and this is something you guys can test, do a little bit of maintenance on your gun and PMCS it. But every time you push that magazine release, you want enough tension on it that it releases, but it's not too loose. I usually have it set to a position where as I push on it, once it goes to flush, it releases that magazine. So as you can see, I keep my stuff in pretty good shape. The only other thing that I'm going to hit is the buffer tube. I use something like this. This is what I use to clean magazines, but it's really easy to use that to clean the buffer tube also. So stick it in there, twirl it around a couple times. After you twirl it, bring it back out, take a look, and shine it up to some light, and pretty clean. If you don't have something like this, this isn't something that you have to buy at a gun store. This is something I got at Walmart, and it's used to clean glasses and cups and all that. So it's pretty easy to use. I keep this on my range bag, like I said, to clean magazines. Anytime I drop a magazine on the ground, a couple times, especially in a competition, they recommend anytime you drop that sucker on the ground, you should take it apart, you should clean it, put it back together, and that just saves you a lot of discontent and hate and misery anytime you're putting if you're having issues with your magazine. Important to clean those magazines. They're making magazines nowadays are a lot easier to take apart, put them back together, to clean them. This is something I recommend. If you don't have something like this, a regular shop towel, just stick it in there, turn it a few times, put an AP brush in there, stick it in, turn it, and clean that sucker out, and it'll clean it. So no issues there. So you don't need a lot of high-speed stuff. I've acquired a lot of this stuff over the years just to make my life a lot easier. Simple tool. I think this costs like $2 at Walmart. Buffer and buffer spring, just a nice little wipe down. Doesn't matter how high speed of stuff you have. So I just wipe it down, make sure you get a lot of that carbon off. And good to go. Put everything back together, and I'll just go ahead and stick it right back there in the buffer tube. Depending on the situation where I'm at, the environment, sometimes I put a little bit of lubrication on there, sometimes I don't. talking about lubrication before I move on. We here at ZERT get a great deal on Rand CLP. So I'm a huge believer in CLP. I've been using it 20 years in the military. CLP break free. This is stuff that I use. CLP, if you didn't know, stands for cleaner, lubricant, preservative. Guys, this takes care of everything. If you're looking for one product that not only cleans but also lubricates, and it's a preservative, you know, for when you're storing, this is great stuff to use. You can get it in a spray bottle, you can get a little container, you can get it in a larger container. I think it even comes in 1 gallon containers if you do a lot of maintenance, or I think it's a lot cheaper when you buy it in a container that's that big. Like I said, I've used CLP forever. I love this stuff. It's great. I've very recently been turned on to another product. I endorse it. I use it. I love it. Lucas Extreme Duty Gun Oil. The cool stuff about this is when you put this stuff on your hand, you can tell a huge difference between the feel of like CLP, which I do love, and Lucas Extreme Duty. This stuff comes in a gallon size container. You can get it in a smaller container, and it also has these it's 1 ounce, and then the smaller one is a 1/2 ounce container. This is what I usually have in a gun bag when I go to the range. The cool thing about this with the little applicator here is it doesn't take a lot when you, that's about all you need for like one side of your BCG. And when you guys put this in your hand, you can even see by looking at it how you can't touch it, of course, but this stuff is slick. So if you can imagine how slick it is with my hand, and you can actually see it sticking together in between my fingers. So this stuff sticks, and the cool thing with this is when you put this, I've seen guys completely not saturate their guns with this stuff, but kind of overdo it on their BCGs, and you don't get a lot of spray back with this stuff just because of when you use this stuff, it just sticks to your gun, it sticks to the bolt. And I've seen guys shoot their firearms, and you got a lot of the stuff out there that just sprays everywhere, sprays on their glasses. This stuff, I guarantee you, will not spray. Now, if you completely douse your gun with this stuff and you just, I mean, it's soaking, yeah, absolutely. But the majority of this stuff is what I use nowadays. Gun oil, it comes in also a gun grease. I'll hit major friction points with this stuff, like on your Glock. You know, you have those certain friction points that I'll just put a little dab of grease on there, and dude, I guarantee you that sucker is going to run until the next time I clean it. If I have a lot of carbon buildup, like I said, I've gone 5,000 rounds with my Glock before. I've taken that sucker apart, and it's just coated in black. I use something made by Slip 2000. It's called Carbon Killer, and I'll take my AP brush. Guys, you don't have to spend a lot of money on these fancy AP brushes. You know, military issue. Go to the dollar store, get yourself a 99-cent toothbrush. That's all you need to clean, you know, most of the carbon off your firearms. I'll dip this AP brush in that and just sit there. I'm not wearing my fancy Z.E.R.T outfit and shirt when I do this, and my best, you know, trucker hat, but just sit there and scrape scrape that carbon away. And this stuff is just, I mean, like I said, Carbon Killer. Carbon hates this stuff. It's a great product, and makes a little bit of a mess. So make sure you're sitting at a workbench and not at your wife's dining room table, you know, cleaning this stuff. But it does a really good job cleaning the carbon off your firearm. Pretty much takes care of the lower. I don't think I missed anything here. Hit the magazine well, trigger assembly, and buffer and buffer tube. Like I said, usually in this area right here, take an air compressor or a can of compressed air, spray it in there. That's pretty much all I do in my trigger assembly. Unless I get a lot of carbon buildup, you can use dental picks to get in there and pick some of that stuff away. Some Q-tips, but 99% of the time, a little bit of compressed air will do the trick. On my upper, gets into a little bit more detail because you're going to have a little bit more carbon buildup in here. You know, the biggest things on your upper receiver is your receiver and your barrel. There's a lot of stuff out there that I see. Brass rods, you know, Dewey makes a great rod. It's a rod that flexes, and I'm a firm believer that, like I said before, your bore snake is pretty much all you need. You can run a bore snake through this barrel 1 or 2 times, and when you look through that barrel, you know, up to a light or the sunlight, I can't imagine how you're going to get that any cleaner. Now, I've had bore snakes here that I got issued to me in the military 20 years ago that I still use. And this is my 223. I actually just got a new one a couple months ago. But the cool thing about this is you don't have to continue to buy patches over and over again. You misplace patches, you end up patches getting everywhere, dirty patches laying on the ground, so on and so on. You know, you're never going to wear one of these things out. When this thing gets dirty, all you got to do is throw it in the wash. I don't recommend you throwing it, you know, in the wash with your whites, you know, with the wife's white, you know, her whites with her lingerie, whatever. I would pretty much put it with your shop rag, so on and so on. But if you throw this thing in the wash, clean it, I mean, it, like I said, I've had this thing for 20 years and it still does the trick. The biggest thing with a bore snake, just like any other rod that you're going to want to use to clean your barrel, is anytime you clean your barrel, make sure that you're pushing that rod or that bore snake through the barrel in the direction of the round. I see a lot of people that they'll put that rod in this direction, they jerk it back and forth. That's not good for your rifle. You know, you want to continue with the path of the rifle or the round, just because when you start gouging your things back and forth, that's when you're going to damage the rifling in this barrel. The cool thing about a bore snake, if you guys have never used this before, you guys can see this is, you know, brass is the best stuff to use because it's really soft metal. And you've got that part, you know, this extends the whole way out for the longest AR barrel that you can imagine. You're just going to dip this sucker through that receiver, and when you look at it, you've got, it gets thicker as it goes, so it's going to clean it. But it also, in this point right here, has got a little bit of a section that is going to clean out the rifling. You've got that brass, you know, just like you have on your bore brush there. It's right there. You got 2 little strips. Like I said, it gets wider, so the longer you pull this sucker through, the harder it's going to get. I've seen guys that use the wrong bore guide in the wrong barrel, and 2-3 guys are sitting there yanking on that thing while another guy's holding onto the upper. Make sure you get the right one. Like I said, I got one for 40, one for 9 mil, one for 45, one for 223, one for 308. Make sure you use the right one. They even make ones out there for shotgun now. I will give you a little demonstration here. You just slide it right down through here. I usually do this last, but this is the first thing that I picked up. I'll clean my star chamber first, but I'm going to give you guys a quick demonstration. Once you see the brass fitting, you just sit there, and if you've never used one of these before, give it a tug. Comes out one time, shine it up there in the light, and perfect, shiny every single time. For the receiver, AP brush. I'll sit there with an AP brush, and if it's been a while, I'll dip my AP brush in my carbon cleaner, sit there and scrub it. Like I said, mine looks pretty good, so I don't have to do it, but just sit there and scrub it out. Make sure you get all that carbon. Now, in saying that, if you got a little bit of time, my recommendation would be just to put a little bit of COP or cleaner in that. You can spray it in here and wipe it around a little bit and let it sit. I would let this sit, start working on my lower, and the cool thing is when you let that sit, it will actually break up that COP. So the next time you hit it, you know, you can clean that AP brush or have a second brush, grab a rag and get in there, and it's actually going to help you break up that COP to a point where, guess what, it could have been a little bit cleaner there. So you can use your carbon cleaner or your carbon killer to hit that COP, whatever you want to hit. But know one thing, if I hit this with COP to break up that lubricant, and then I decide just to, hey, I'm done cleaning this weapon, I'm tired, I'm bored, I can go ahead and slap that whole thing together, you know, and I know it's going to run because it's not just cleaner, it's also lubricant, and it's also protective. If you use something like this, well, guess what? If I use this, now I got to clean all this stuff off before I put my bolt in it, before I put my bolt back together, so on and so on. So be really cognizant of what you're doing. I can dip my BCG in that to clean it. I can let it soak in there, but you got to get in there and clean all that stuff off before you put that AR-15 back together again. So once I hit my receiver, one of the hardest things to clean on this is what makes me laugh is watching people clean their star chamber. If you don't understand what a star chamber is, or if you don't know why they call it a star chamber, all you got to do is look inside your receiver, your upper receiver, and you got that little chamber there that basically looks like a star. And on your BCG, you got your bolt that you got these little lugs, and whenever it locks into place, this actually locks into that, and you fire that round, the round goes down the rifle, it unlocks, extracts the round, puts another round in it, locks, fires around, and it does it as fast as you can pull that trigger. Well, you got the majority of the carbon buildup right here. Okay, and this is what a lot of people neglect, and unfortunately, because people neglect that, back in the day they had to come out with something called the forward assist. So if your BCG or your bolt goes in, and let me find my charging handle real quick. Once I put that charging handle in and that BCG in, if I've got a lot of carbon buildup right here, to a point where there is so much carbon buildup that I have to use my forward assist to cram that sucker in there, guess what that's telling me? It's probably too dirty. And you probably need to clean that bolt, and you probably need to clean that star chamber. Well, a lot of people don't know how to do that. And a lot of people do know how to do that, or know that you need to do that, but you take too much time and effort to do it. So I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to do it. Now, in cleaning kits, most cleaning kits out there, I'm going to check this Dewey one real quick, make sure there's one in here. And there is a brand new one. I'm going to have to use this one. I might get in trouble if I do. Mine are a couple years old, but you have this little star chamber cleaning brush thing that you can use. The cool thing about this is it's attached to an attachment. I've got another piece here, make myself a T-handle, and all I got to do is throw that sucker in there, give it a few hundred turns. Might be here for a couple hours. You might need to fast forward this video, and after a while it is eventually going to break that carbon up. Broken up a little bit, I can get in there with the dental pick. Looks pretty straight. Get in there and chew it up a little bit. Dig all that stuff out. Get in there with the Q-tip. Put some CLP on it. Help break up that carbon. That's really not that bad because I did clean it. Or something that we figured out a long time ago is you can use technology and a little bit of power tools to assist you with this. So this is one of the things that we do. Most of you guys got a drill at home, whether it's a cordless or a one that you plug into the wall. Put my safety glasses on. Everybody got safety glasses in here? Put my safety glasses on, and I've got the exact same tool here. Star chamber, brush. I've got two rods here because I don't want to slam my drill into the front of my upper receiver. Got two rods. All I'm going to do is shove that in. It's the exact same motion, but guess what? Pretty sure I just cleaned this sucker up in well under half the time. And I'm going to go ahead and take a gander, take a look. And I guarantee you it is shiny because that sucker's got a whole heck of a lot more faster RPMs than I can sit there and crank on it. And because of those fast RPMs, it looks pretty good there. Now in saying that, these little teeth, these lugs, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to actually push that back and forth. I may have to hit that again, and that's one of the reasons why it's nice to have a dental pick just to move that sucker around. I loosened it up pretty good. That actually looks a whole heck of a lot better. Can't see it from there, but you can actually see a little bit of shine in there on the camera, and that's pretty much all you got to do. Guys, you got to drill. I know you do. Most American men and women nowadays do have some type of power tool to do that. So that works really well on my star chamber. I've cleaned the receiver. The only thing that really rusts on this thing is your ejection port cover. Mine's aluminum, so I don't have to worry about it. You know, a lot of guys sit there and kind of scrub down their compensator, you know, hit it, maybe clean some of the dirt off. I don't IG my guns. I'm not here to have shiny guns. I clean it to get the carbon out the inside. I could care less what the outside looks like. Of course, I'm on video a lot, so you kind of want to make your stuff look sexy. It is what it is. But after I hit that star chamber, like I said, then I'll take my bore snake and hit it, because you just put probably a lot of CLP, a lot of carbon into your barrel using your star chamber brush. So at that point, I'll take it, remember the direction that I'm going to go, down through, give it a tug, then I'm good to go again. Sucker's clean, my lands and grooves are clean. When we get out to the range, we're going to talk about an issue that I just did right here, and we're gonna go out to the range to talk about a cold bore shot. Because I just cleaned this firearm, there's a lot of little tiny issues with the rifling, that when you fire that first shot, your cold bore shot is a shot that is probably, that initial shot is going to be off target. And we call it a cold bore shot because you got a lot of little nicks in your lands and grooves and a lot of discrepancies in that barrel, that when you fire that first shot down range, the copper in that bullet will end up filling up those discrepancies. So the reason why your cold bore shot is off is because that bullet is actually taking a different route. You know, that rifling affects that bullet differently, and then once those discrepancies are filled up, now every round that goes down range, now it's going to be the same from that point on. Like I said, we're going to go out to the range, we're going to talk about cold bore, you know, internal ballistics, external ballistics, so on and so on, and we're going to do that in the near future, so tune in for that one. Last but not least, your charging handle and your bolt carrier group. I kind of cheat here. I ended up getting a bolt carrier group from a company called Iron City that like I said, I cheat. They got a special coating on this thing that makes this extremely easy to clean. You can, as you can see right here, all I got to do is wipe the carbon off. Now, if I take this thing apart, you're going to see I probably got a little bit of carbon buildup. For those of you that have never taken a bolt carrier group apart, it's pretty simple. You've got your takedown pin right here. Once you take that off, firing pin should slip right out. After the firing pin slips out, you've got this cam that just slips to the side. You rotate it. After you rotate it, slips out. As you can see, I got a little bit of CLP there. And then your bolt comes out. You've got a extractor on the side and your extractor pin. Don't use your firing pin to take the sucker apart. Don't use your pin. I recommend using something else, because I see a lot of people using their firing pin to get in there and take that pin out. Well, what you're doing when you do that is you're wearing your firing pin. You can actually wear that down, put little gouges, and that's probably what's going to cause you to have light primer strikes, so on and so on. So I've got a pick here that all I'm going to do is push in on that pin. Once I push it in, it comes apart, and you've got every one of your parts taken apart. Now, as you can see, I got a little bit of CLP. I tend to keep CLP or my Lucas Extreme Duty on here. I will, like I said, I'm not really too worried about IGing my gun, but one of the main places where you get carbon buildup on this sucker that really sticks is right here on the bottom of your bolt. You got a lot of carbon here. Plenty of tools that you can use to clean this. Military actually started issuing us a tool here, and I can't even remember what the sucker's called. If I can find it, give me a second. Bad planning. I think it's called a CAT M4. I don't even know what it stands for. But the cool thing about this tool is you can actually take this, slip it in, and you can grind some of that carbon off. Or you can use a diddle pick and sit there and grind that carbon off. Or one of the things that we do that we found out works really good and easy. I don't have any carbon on there, but if I did, what you're going to grab is your drill, or I have a Dremel, and you're going to use one of these suckers here. What's this called? Anybody remember what this piece is called?
A bit. On a Dremel?
Yeah, on a Dremel. It's basically, these things come in brass. They come in it's soft metal, And I just slide that thing on my Dremel. I'm going to put my eye protection back on because I don't want to get a chunk of anything. Especially when you got this running high RPMs, these little pieces will have a tendency to fly off. These little shards get stuck in your clothing. You definitely don't want to catch one of these in your eye. But I'll turn my Dremel on. If I have any carbon there at all, I'll just hit it. And this works amazing. Oh, I can feel some pieces flying around already. Works great to get all that carbon off your bolt. Now I can also use it right here to hit my lugs if I have any carbon buildup on the lugs of my bolt. As you can see, pretty darn clean. One of the things that people usually don't hit, you want to be really careful because you don't want to get your Q-tips stuck, is they'll clean out the center of the bolt. And I can twist it a couple times, get in there, clean all that carbon out. You'll actually have a little piece of Q-tip that you can see come down the top. What you don't want to do when you do this though is make sure that none of that Q-tip gets stuck in there. So that's why I recommend, I'm not doing it now, got generic Q-tips here, but Q-tips actually are the best cotton swabs out there because they have a tendency to stick on this little Q-tip rod, whatever you guys want to call it. But I'll hit my bolt, clean the head of my bolt, hit there, and once this sucker is all clean, your gas rings, guys, I don't even know if this is true or if this is a rumor. I've actually fired my gun lining up every one of these gas rings so they're all fitting at the same spot. I was told in the military a long time ago that these gas rings have to be separated. Well, I'm not the guy that takes a chance, so before I reassemble my AR-15, I make sure all these gas rings are separated. You're going to see the little part, that little opening. Just make sure all three of the openings aren't together. And bolt's clean. Like I said, my BCG has got this great coating on it. Makes it easy to clean. That's one of the reasons why I love Iron City. They put this coating on all their guns. Color coordinated here. It's lightweight. They mill a lot of this stuff out. I still have my my notches here in case I ever do use the forward assist. It's a bad habit. I need to get out of it. But I also use the star chamber brush to get in there and clean the inside of my bolt carrier group. Once it's clean, I wipe it down and it's good to go. Cam clean. It's ready for assembly. Now the cool thing about Lucas Extreme Duty is all it takes is a little dab of lubricant, and each one of my parts here, before I put it together, all I'm doing is placing a little dab. Certain places I'll use the grease, other places I'll use the oil, just depending on the friction points. As you can see here, not a lot of friction points here, but I'll just take a dab and hit that spring, run it down, place it back into my bolt, hold tight, a little bit of compression, pin back in. For those of you that don't have a lot of, aren't too familiar, when you place the bolt back into the BCG, separate everything's together. I have to do a little editing here. What you want to do, your extractor has to be, there's two ways to put the sucker in so this hole lines up in your bolt. Now one of the holes is actually a little bit larger in diameter than the other one on the bottom of your bolt. So once you put it in, like I said, it could be right side up or it could be upside down. Upside down is this little notch here is facing to the bottom of the BCG. So when you put it in, you want to make sure that it is on the top. So when you put that in, your cam only goes in one way and it's at an angle, but you can see this hole right here, that's where your firing pin's going to fit through. So got the hole lined up, I put it in. At that point, your cam's rotated in the wrong direction. You're going to rotate it 90 degrees. After you rotate it 90 degrees, that's going to let you drop that firing pin after it's clean. As you can see, it's clean. Usually all you have to do is wipe it down. If there is any carbon buildup at all, I'll use my Dremel tool. I'll just put a little bit of CLP on it. It'll loosen up the carbon and that stuff comes right off. Place it right down through the center of your BCG. Drop it in. You should be able to see it comes out through the bottom. Make sure that your bolt is pressed in the whole way and your firing pin is pressed in the whole way. At that point, you want to take your pin, rotate it around, and at that point, I'll snap it a couple times. Snap it, make sure it's loose, it's free running, there's nothing in there. As you can see with the quick snap, it runs pretty well. Something that I did forget is, a little bit too ahead of myself, is a little bit of lubricant. You got certain friction points on here. You got this little metal ring. This is pretty much the only thing that runs along the inside of the bolt. So I'm just going to hit this with a little bit of Lucas and run it through there. I'm going to take my fingers, hit the top side, or this would actually be the bottom, because this is where all that carbon buildup is. So if you lubricate a little bit, it's going to help keep that carbon loose, so the next time you clean it, it's going to be a little bit easier to get that carbon off. Going to assemble it the exact same way. Cam. One of the things we had to do in the military, hate to say it, but we had to do all this stuff with our eyes closed. Biggest problem with doing it with your eyes closed is remembering where you put the parts on the table. But you can use your touch, and using your touch and figuring out, okay, that's closed, firing pins in, you know, and you can figure out pretty much where to put parts with your eyes closed, or where the parts go when you're assembling. Friction points on your BCG and your bolt. Pretty much this whole little rod right here. Now, depending, like I said, I've got a high-speed BCG here. You want to make sure that this has got a nice light. I'll put a little bit on my fingers, run it across. But the major friction points on your BCG is where it's running down through the bottom. Put a little bit on the firing pin and these two little areas. Now, once I slide it on there, just going to wipe it in. Make sure that I hit the teeth. And I got a nice thin layer of Lucas on my BCG. Same thing for my charging handle. Wiping it down. And I'm going to hit 2 dabs with my Lucas. Just going to one across the bottom, one across the top. And that's pretty much all I need. Reassembly. All I'm doing, for those of you that have never taken an AR apart, I can't believe that, is you've got a little notch in here. That notch is where this little notch on the charging handle is going to fit in. So all you're going to do is slide it down the receiver till it fits in that notch. You're going to leave that charging handle about halfway up. Flick that BCG so your bolt comes out. Place it on top. Once you place it on top, slide it in, everything fits in. Now what I'm looking for whenever I push this in is making sure that when it locks, I not only hear a metallic sound, but there's no obstructions. I'm listening for any sharp pieces, carbon. When you hear that nice sound when you put that in, I mean, you know when you did it right and you did a half decent job cleaning it. That's the inside of my upper. My barrel's clean, everything looks good, everything's pretty well lubricated. Out here in the desert, you don't want to put a lot of lubrication on your guns. You know, depending on the whether you're in a cold weather environment, hot weather, desert, there's a lot of sand. If I put a lot of lubrication on this out here in the desert, that's just going to collect that much more dirt. So I keep most of my guns light lubricated. You know, I'll get back from a range depending on how many shots that I shot. You know, maybe wipe it down. It's really easy to do with my BCG from Iron City. I'll wipe it down, put a little bit of lubricant back on it, and then I'm ready to run again. But as you can see, for the most part, my AR is dry, and a lot easier for this one to go ahead and close that ejection port cover, put it in. Very last thing that you want to do is a function check. Always do a function check with your AR. And one of the things that I've learned when I do a function check, I also want to test to make sure that my trigger reset engages. So sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, there's not a round in the chamber. If there was a round in the chamber right now, who knows how the heck it got up there, unless we just edited it. I went to the bathroom and XP001 picked this up. That's why you're always doing a double check. So I'm going to pull that trigger. Sounds good. At that point, I'm going to leave my finger on the trigger. It's still on fire. I'm going to pull that charging handle. I'm going to release it to the point where I hear that click or feel that click. I'm going to pull that trigger again. That shows me that my trigger reset is good to go. Yep, it's good to go. I can't flick it on safe. I shouldn't be able to flick it on safe. You want to test that. Charge it one more time. Put it on safe. It engages. And gun's clean. It's went through its safety check. Pretty much guaranteed the next time I put a live magazine in and pull that trigger, it's going to send a round into the target, and ready, good to go until the next time I clean it. So if you guys have any questions on the stuff that I used, so on and so on, like I said, we got a lot of great stuff that we give away and use at ZERT, but I've got a lot of stuff that over the years I found out works pretty well, and how I clean my AR-15. Sometimes it takes me about 2 minutes depending on how much time I have. Other times it can take me 15-20 minutes. I've got a nice mat, a nice workbench at the house, do all my maintenance on, and because when you start slinging this stuff around, it can make a mess. So don't do it on your dining room table, don't do it on your nice couch unless you got a nice, you know, little area to do your maintenance. And yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any questions, concerns, any comments, I'll leave them below. And see you guys on my next video. Mr. X out.
Support law-abiding citizens taking their skills to the next level. We provide training opportunities and a wealth of knowledge via ZERT's global network of like-minded individuals. Each ZERT member can take it as far as they wish to go. You can take part in ZERT training, ZERT online training, network with individuals in your area via the forums or private Facebook pages, attend meet and greets in your state or county, or have fun collecting the unique gear ZERT has to offer. We have members from all walks of life, and our emphasis is on creating a safe, fun, and mature community for all involved. When you think of ZERT, consider the term lifestyle. Lifestyle can denote the interests, opinions, behaviors, and behavioral orientations of an individual, group, or culture. By definition, ZERT is a lifestyle. ZERT's instructor cadre is made up of Special Forces instructors who use their vast knowledge and real-world experience to teach civilian members. ZERT's goal is to elevate the level of education and safety in the training industry. ZERT is not just an organization. It's a lifestyle. ZERTnation.com